Well, welcome everyone back to another episode of A Founder's Journey. This is brought to you as part of the Founder Circle group, and so excited to have my next guest, Gary Stringham. He is the founder of Cubby Paperless. He has been a consultant, expert witness for. He's been an author, an adjunct professor, and a software engineer. And so grateful to have you here with us, Gary. And I just really like to kind of get right into it, and let's just talk about how this all began for you. I mean, when did you know you wanted to be a founder?
Well, I didn't do this because I wanted to be a founder. I did this because I had a problem that I didn't see that anybody else was solving.
There you go.
Even though I'm very much comfortable with technology, I'm a techie type. I've used computers my whole life, and I even had a programmable calculator in high school. I was one of 3 kids that had it in high school, but I'm comfortable with technology. But with regards to paper bills and statements, with utility bills and bank statements, I get them on paper, and they're always nagging me to switch to paperless. You log in and get at your stuff, but I didn't want to create a bunch of different login accounts for my utility bill, my power bill, my water bill, and I mean, while I do create an account for my bank because I want to move money around and stuff, I still want to have the paper version. And one thing I realized when I was opening up some more bills on, yet another bill that I got, and it was nagging me on that, is that they say, well, we'll keep it online for a year. And I need stuff longer than that for tax purposes, for record purposes. I mean, yes, I'm an old guy, so I'm used to filing papers in a filing cabinet. But still, for tax purposes and for record keeping purposes, I need it longer. There was one time I went in for a background check, and they found somebody with my name with a allegedly criminal activity in some location somewhere. But because I had a paper copy of a utility bill that showed that I was living somewhere else at the time, they figured it was someone else. And sometimes you need paper copies, or you need proof of residency, like to get your driver's license star card with what they're for the TSA. Need it for proof of employment and things like that. And so I was just dragging my feet. I didn't want to sign up for paperless stuff. But they were just kept nagging me, and so I came up with the idea of, what if there was just one place where I could get it, then if I was just one login, then I'd be willing to do that. But I worked with Hewlett Packard in their LaserJet printer division for years, and so I know the printing side of it and how it's expensive and post is expensive to mail stuff. So it's rather clear why companies are trying to push their customers to switch to paperless. They're trying to cut down the cost. I mean, they'll say things like, save the environment, or it's your convenience. Well, it's not my convenience if I have to log in and get it. And they may send me an email saying, hey, your statement's ready, but if I'm not logging in at that moment, that email is going to get buried underneath in my inbox, or it may be in my spam folder. And so it just wasn't convenient for me to do an online approach to that. And so one of the things that I did when I was at Hewlett Packard, you mentioned the book that I'm an author of. Probably the key piece of that book was how I bridged the gap between 2 different organizations. There's the hardware side and the software side. And you can find experts, hardware experts telling hardware engineers how to write their stuff. You can find software experts telling software engineers how to write their stuff. But there's very little that says to tell the hardware engineers how to write it so that it makes it easier for the software guy, because the software guy has got to program those hardware chips. And so it's a cross-discipline kind of approach. And so that kind of thinking led me on this, because I'm going, me as a consumer, I don't want to hassle with all this with the way they're pushing it, but I'm also can look at it from the business, from the company side, and what they're trying to achieve on it. And so I came up with a solution that solves a problem, I think, on both sides. And so with Cubby Paperless, it's a way to, I guess one of the marketing phrases I use is it lowers the conversion barrier to paperless. And so it makes it easier for people to switch to paperless. You don't have to create an account with your power company, your electric company, your water company if you don't want to, but you can still get it on paperless. And it'll keep it around a lot longer. And so, which another thing too, I had a son who was working for a warehouse for a few weeks during one summer, and then he had to leave and go out of town. And so he was no longer working there, and he no longer had access to or computer access. So he had me log in to get his last pay stub. And so I logged in and I got the PDF of his pay stubs and the ones that of the pay period before that. And then 2 weeks later, I tried it again and his account had been shut off. Mm. And so when you move away from somewhere, you're no longer getting power from that power company, you're no longer with that bank, they're going to shut off your access rather quickly. And you no longer have access to all your paper, to your data, to your all your previous bills and statements. And so that was another reason for coming up with this concept. And
so you're actually vaulting kind of the information on your site, so people don't always have access to it no matter what. And
yes,
then you're logging in for them and getting and retrieving it and stuff.
Well, a lot of people think that I'm going to log into on their accounts and get this stuff, but I'm not doing that.
You're not doing that.
The model is different. The companies upload it because then they know when the month is up and they'll push the PDF files to Cubby. That way, Cubby doesn't have to figure out when is the right time of the month to go check in on the other companies, and that also means that you don't have to give Cubby your credentials, your login credentials to that site. There are companies that do it that way, but I have seen where there had been problems because some of the customers will say it's broken, it's no longer working, and it's probably because the company changes their APIs and this aggregator service no longer is working, and so they have to kind of do it. So I flipped the model around the other way, so the companies push it. The other thing that's kind of different about this approach is if you think about the paper way of doing business, the companies pay for the paper, the printing, and the postage, and you as a customer get it for free. You just walk out to your mailbox and it's there for free. And so the other aggregator companies that I've seen, the customer pays for it, and there's not going to be very many willing to pay for it, especially if you have to pay a little bit more for yet another bill to get. And so this way, my business model is that the company pays for it. So the company pays to use the Cubby service. Again, since it's paperless, there's no paper printing and postage involved. It's going to be a lot cheaper for the company to use the Cubby service if they can get customers to switch to it. And so with this approach, and being that it's free for customers, and it will always be free for customers, there's going to be a lot more customers willing to switch over and sign on.
That makes sense. Okay. Well, Susie, you mentioned, you tried to solve a problem, but that actually wasn't your first. I mean, you have a consulting business that I think you started before that, right? So
yes,
yeah, your first, and I think it's interesting that you were an expert witness, specifically on copyright and patent infringements, right?
Yes.
Is that more in the tech world? Is that specifically your area or expertise or?
Yeah, I've had several expert witness cases, litigation cases involving software copyrights and stuff. And so my background is hardware engineering and software engineering. Yeah. And so there have been times when one company sues another company for stealing and using their copyrighted software or infringing on their patents without paying for a license. And they have to have a geek come in and look at it to see if it really is the same or not. Mm-hmm. And so that's where I come in. And so one of the things that I'll pass on here is for founders that I have learned because I have been involved with cases is when you develop some stuff, get it patented, get it copyrighted, and so that you protect your IP, your intellectual property. And so one of the things that I have done with Cubby, because of my background as an expert witness, is I filed for patents on this concept. I honestly didn't think it was that novel of an idea, but the patent examiner granted a patent to me. And so I have a patent on this concept, and he could not, and I could not find anybody else or any other instance of this. So it is a unique approach on this. And so get looking at it for try to protect your intellectual property and copyright your software, and it'll save you a lot of headaches.
Yeah. So in this process, what has been, have you had some, what's been the biggest setback that you had to deal with and you did?
Well, probably the biggest challenge is I'm a techie guy. I'm not a business type.
Yeah.
And so I'm having to figure out how to do marketing and sales. And, I can do a little bit research online and figure out how to incorporate and figure out what might be the best way to incorporate my business and things like that. But I'm having to spend a lot of time doing that kind of stuff to learn how to do it, which is delaying me from doing this. So I have tried to hire, in fact, I've got a job posting out right now on my website on cubbypaperless.com for jobs for looking for a co-founder type, a business type, and marketing type to help me out. And I've interviewed a few people, but it just hasn't been the right mix, and their availability and a fit and all that kind of fun stuff. And so I'm having to play HR. I have to put that hat on my head, and all the legal ramifications involved with hiring and stuff like that. And so one thing that I have done a lot of is use a lot of contract workers. And so I've had contract marketeers, I've had contract finance types, and of course an attorney I use. And so I have used some of that. But that does cost some money.
Sure.
And in fact, and I've been looking to hire some of this stuff I could do. In fact, even in the software stuff, my software background is in what we normally call in the industry firmware, or in other words, it's a software that runs inside of devices. I used to work for HP and their LaserJet printers, so I was writing the software that ran inside there. The software that's used to drive websites is totally different. And so while I could learn that, I'm very capable of learning that. I need to spend my time as more of a, the founder CEO role and hire others who know the web environment to do that. So that would be another piece of it. There's a TV show called Leverage, and they've got a new series, Leverage Redemption, and in one of the episodes there, one of the guys said, "Do you know why restaurants fail?" And the answer is because the chef is chopping the lettuce. And I thought, well, that's what I'm doing when I'm spending my time trying to figure out how to write website software, is I'm chopping the lettuce when I should be figuring out the recipes and all this other stuff. And so I've used that to try to keep me going in the a more higher level and get some other help involved. So
that's so what I mean, I know you mentioned one of the things you would say would so biggest lesson learned from all this so far.
I don't know which one the biggest one is.
Well, name a couple of them.
But, I guess another thing I've learned is while it's great to use outsourcing help, because I don't have to hire someone and figure out how to pay them once the jobs are done or when the jobs slow down. While that is true, the other side of that is those outsourcers, those contract workers have other clients. And so I have to get in line with their other clients. And sometimes I'm not the biggest paying customer. And so I have to get way back in line. And so it has slowed me down in getting things accomplished because I'm sitting around waiting for them to get time to do work on my project.
Gotcha.
And so I'm having to
now between in-house versus out-house and the plus and pros and cons of both type deal.
Yes. And so, I'm thinking if I want to get this going, I'm going to have to be willing to pay more. Okay, I want you to dedicate your person to me 100% of the time or 50% of the time or something like that, just to, get things moving. So that's one thing I'm dealing with. And then just, again, spinning my wheels a lot, trying to, well, yeah, I guess another thing too is, since I'm running by myself, is I have no one to talk to, basically, a sounding board.
Yeah.
And I really liked it at HP. I missed that from when I was at HP. I could just step over the cubicle wall and, you know, and just, yeah, they're there. And I say, I'm having trouble with this. And I explain it to them. And as I explain it to them, then I figure out the answer without them having to say much sometimes.
Yeah.
and I miss that.
Yeah.
And while I'm running by myself. So
Sure, that makes sense. Yeah. So if you were going to give some advice to somebody based on what you experienced so far, what would you what would you tell to them? I mean, in addition of the patent and the you get all that stuff done, what else would you say?
One of the things that I did when I left HP, I left them about 16 years ago, was I had subscribed to Inc. magazine and Fast Company magazine. And to me, they were very interesting. And so I gained a lot of business skills, a lot of business know-how by reading articles in those magazines. And they don't talk about just about the successes. Yeah. They also talk about failures and why companies go under. And so it's been very enlightening to learn from others. And so I've been doing that all along. And so I think I have a better business mindset for an engineer compared to normal, because I've had that background over the years that I've been reading up on that. Yeah.
Because my next question was going to be, what would be a book you recommend? Although maybe it would just be Inc. magazine. I don't know. It would be another one.
The magazine's a good one, yeah. And then Lean Startup is one that a lot of people refer to by Eric Ries, is a good one. Yeah. There's one about a couple of them called Profit First by Mike Michalowicz. In fact, I guess I can do it this way, huh?
There you go.
Do that, and then also this one here, which has been, it kind of talks about finances in a different light. And to me, it makes more sense than what is typically done as far as how startups are done. And you'll hear the thing that's like, we got an idea and now let's go get t-shirts. It's like that. No, that's not the thing you should be spending your money on yet. And so they kind of change things up as far as where you should put your priorities on how you spend your money, so that you're not burning up your runway too quickly. And so that has been very insightful. And there's probably been a couple others that I've liked, but
those have been really helpful though. And
those have been helpful.
Like Inc. Magazine, that's an interesting. Just reading those and hearing people's failures, successes that way, that'd be great. Yeah. So, well, it's been fun talking to you and learn a little more about how you got into solving a problem. And I think how many people, that's probably how they got into it. Just for what seeing a problem how to be fixed. And so, thanks so much, Gary, for joining me today. And any last words before we close? Any more thoughts?
Can't think of any. It is a there are some highs and lows, mostly lows, but
in the beginning it can be that way. And I think as people, unless you've gone through this, you don't know how those work. I actually I've started a number of businesses. Probably the hardest one was after my wife passed away, and trying to do that during that time. That was hard.
Oh experience.
And trying to deal with morning and start a business. You talk about low all the time.
Yeah.
But even so, no matter what, you have to go with that. And I think, like you mentioned, for me, I think it's having that person who like I usually try to have somebody I can start with, because usually one of you is going to be up, so you can help the other one, in the process. And so,
I guess another thing I've learned is Cubby has a B2C and a B2B side.
Oh, okay.
The B2C side is for all the customers who log in and get their business statement, and it's free for them. And it's easy to do market research on the B2C side. And I've got very good reviews on this concept on the B2C side. The B2B side has been a lot harder, because I need to talk to the right people in the right companies, and that's hard to get in there and get to them, especially for an engineer who's not as outgoing sales marketing type. And so that's still a challenge that I'm figuring out is how to validate things from the B2B side.
Yeah, just some of the market research.
But yeah. So, but I've had good reviews from people when I explain it to them, and so I'm still marching forward.
Well, I wish the absolute best wishes. It was a great idea, and I'm sure you'll do great. Thanks so much.